What I'm going to do is to first show you some of my botanical paintings. I did a presentation a few years ago, and these are the ones that I have painted since then. So I will do that first, and then I will go into showing you some backyard plants from Sri Lanka from my recent visit there. So here we go. So my first flower is the bunchberry. Everybody is familiar with this. I made two paintings because I really like them. One with the berries and so on. But you might wonder why one flower gives a whole cluster of berries. It's not like a blackberry or strawberry or anything, but they are individually separate berries. How does one flower gives something like this? That is simply because the structure that we call as the flower is not really the flower. These petals are bracts. These are located under the sepals, and they are specialized leaves that protect the flower, the group of flowers. But from when you're looking from a distance, it looks like a single flower. So the actual flowers of the bunchberry are located in the middle. Each one of these tiny little things is a flower. So that's why, and when they get, of course, pollinated, and some of them eventually grow into berries, that's why you get a cluster of berries, one representing one of these flowers that happen to be pollinated properly. So that's one interesting fact about these bunchberries. And other than them being so pretty when you see them in a whole mass of them in one place. And the other thing is that bunchberry is the fastest opening flower in the whole plant kingdom. And that was published in a journal, Nature, not too long ago. So it has the fastest flower opening in the plant kingdom, and it takes only about half a millisecond. So 1 millisecond is 1,000th of a second. So it's even half of that. And that is to basically to facilitate this explosive release of pollen grains from stamens. And actually, that particular article had a nice diagram showing this. They had done videotaping, and here one of those tiny flowers that is in the middle, and the four petals. They also have four petals, just like these outer bracts, and they are fused at the center here. And within basically 0.2 milliseconds, you can see the petals just like a wing fluttering because it's that fast, and it quickly opens, and that release so much energy, and that makes the pollen grains to catapult into the air. Basically, by the time 1 millisecond comes, it's all done. So they, so far, when you look at the recorded history, this is the fastest moving or fastest action in a plant. Not just the flower opening, any kind of action that happens within the plant cells. So that's very interesting. Here's my second painting. This is Wild Lily of the Valley, or Meanthaemum canadense. And this is actually, the specimen is from the Frog Pond walk here in the city. And later in the summer, of course, the berries turn into red and very pretty. And this is golden or gold thread, Coptis trifolia. And it's called gold thread because of the root is very, yellowish in color, and the flowers are really pretty. And this is a medicinal plant, and native people have used it for treating sores in the mouth. So another common name for this particular plant is canker root, because they use the root for treating, sores in the mouth. And the seeds you can see in the summer, and they are pretty too. And one of my favorite things to go looking for late in the summer is blackberries. And this is actually from where I work in the Mount St. Vincent University grounds, and there's a whole section where it's full of blackberries, and so I really like painting them, especially to get these berries shining in the sun. And another one of my favorites is the mountain ash, and this is the Sobus americana. Of course, you know, there are two main types, right? The garden variety, which is different from this, and I think that is Sobus acuparia, but this is different from that. You can see, you know, very many berries, and they are tinier, and the leaf structure, you can identify them. So this is mountain ash late in the summer. And this particular painting is the greater purple French orchid, Platanthera grandiflora. And actually, this is part of my paint. This painting is one single painting on its own, but I had started another painting to show the whole inflorescence, the whole bunch of flowers and the leaves and so on. So it's not done yet. This is fairly similar to the other purple French orchid, a lesser purple French orchid, but you can tell them apart. You know, it's a little bit difficult, but when you look at the flower is a little bit bigger, the petals are more fuller, and also this opening is rounder in the grandiflora, and the other one is more like a flattened opening. There are a number of others, you know, features that allows you to tell the difference. It's almost like trying to say that when you see a woodpecker, is it a hairy woodpecker? Is it a downy woodpecker? They both have the same color pattern, and it's the size difference. And once you get your eyes used to it, you can tell one from the other fairly easily. So it's the same situation. So that's my last painting that I wanted to show you. Now I'm going to move on to my next part, which is the backyard plants. I cannot even read my own title there. Backyard plants of Sri Lanka. Before I go into talking about the backyard plants, I want to give you a little bit information about the Sri Lanka, the geology, and also the climatic zones. So Sri Lanka is a small island. It's actually smaller than Nova Scotia. That's located at the southern tip of India. So it's about 26 miles separating the southern tip of India from the northern tip of Sri Lanka here. So it's almost like a V. That's India, and Sri Lanka is at the, you know, at the end. So the island basically has, you know, very beautiful coastline all around. And in the central part are the high mountains right here. And capital city Colombo is here, and where I grew up is somewhere here in the lower range of mountains right here. And because of this arrangement where, you know, very high mountains at the center and the coastline there, and also based on how the wind blows and the monsoon rain comes, there are four main climatic zones. The majority of Sri Lanka is basically the dry zone, and green area is the wet zone where, you know, lots of rain comes, and this lighter green is the intermediate zone. So where I grew up is somewhere in the borderline here. We get lots of rain, you know, somewhere here. And then there are two smaller regions here at the two ends here, and those are very, very dry, very harsh, you know, climate zones here, these two. So why I showed this is because even though Sri Lanka is a small island, the flora and fauna changes quite a lot. You know, if you compare to Nova Scotia, another, you know, similar, I should say, area. If you think about Nova Scotia, you can go from Yarmouth to Cape Breton, and if you look at, you know, plant types may vary slightly, but not that much. And also the geology doesn't change that much. You can drive straight through, you know, on the highway. There are no huge mountains to climb and go around. And, you know, there is coastal flora and fauna, and then there is the, you know, general land stuff. But if you look at Sri Lanka, it's not like that. No, you couldn't just drive from Colombo to here just across because of these very high mountains. And so you have to go around and around, and it takes day, to go from here to there, literally it takes a full day. So because of that reason, the geology is so different. You get different plant types, different animal types, the different climatic zones in such a small country. So what I'm going to show you as plants today are just the plants that are found in our backyard, basically. So in this wet zone, sort of bounding on the intermediate zone, where we get lots of rain, lots of sun, everything is luscious and green. So that's the plants that I'm going to show you. So the first plant that I want to bring out here is the cinnamon. And in fact, when you look at the cinnamon of the world, there are two main types of cinnamon: cassia cinnamon and Ceylon cinnamon. So Ceylon is the term that the British people gave Sri Lanka when they came to Sri Lanka in 1800s. So real name is Sri Lanka, but Ceylon is what the Western world call Sri Lanka. So that's why the name Ceylon cinnamon here. So the cassia cinnamon, I think there are about 3 different species, but they are fairly similar to each other. And Ceylon cinnamon is quite different. So you can already see by looking at this, the cassia cinnamon is thicker, much thicker. Ceylon cinnamon is thin, and you can easily chew it and without hurting your teeth. And these are more reddish, and Ceylon cinnamon is lighter color. So if you look at the powder cinnamon here that you're familiar with, is fairly almost like a brick brown, but this is much lighter. And not only that, there is one other big difference when it comes to the health concerns. Of course, both cinnamons, they are called cinnamon because they are both in the same genus. And they all have, certain compounds in common to give that cinnamony flavor. But there is one particular chemical, which is coumarin, which is an aromatic compound that has a benzene ring and attach another structure to it. Coumarin compound is fairly high in all cassia cinnamon. And in Ceylon cinnamon, it's present in trace amounts. And why we talk about coumarin is because this is what gives the toxicity to cinnamon if you take it in high amounts. It has been implicated in liver damage and various other conditions. And it's in fact in the European Union, I think initially it was banned using cassia cinnamon, but now they allow, but they regulate, saying you can only use this many milligrams of cassia cinnamon per kilogram of any, baking flour or any other food stuff. Because I think, let me see, when you think about in 1 teaspoon, how much coumarin you have, it's in the 1 teaspoon, whatever the coumarin amount that is present, whatever the milligram number that I cannot remember now, that's okay to consume as long as you don't consume that much daily, a couple of teaspoons daily to build up that toxicity in your liver. But if you just use it, if you're having a cinnamon bun today and tomorrow, it's okay. But it's just that, even if you eat a cinnamon bun at one time, you don't have a whole teaspoon of cinnamon in there. You may put 2 teaspoons for a whole batch of cinnamon buns. So it's not too much of a concern, but sometimes people take highly concentrate, cinnamon tablets for other health benefits, but that's when you need to keep an eye on that. And also that there's a big difference in taste too. cassia cinnamon, even I found it when I first came to North America. Like when you start using it, you feel like after you eat a little, you have enough of it. You feel it's very strong, but Ceylon cinnamon is much more subtle and very almost like just a tinge of vanilla flavor and very soft feeling, and it's much more pleasurable. And so I was trying to think of a way to explain the difference between cassia cinnamon and Ceylon cinnamon as far as the taste wise. And I came upon this. I'm just going to move this one a little bit this way. This description from a culinary magazine online, and I thought that really describes it. I think it's a good description of the difference between the two. It's much more satisfying to eat Ceylon cinnamon than the other. So that's why it is much more expensive too. Okay, so if you're wondering what the Ceylon cinnamon tree look like, so this is a young plant, and this is in our backyard. My sister put it on the ground. She told me about 2 years ago during COVID. So when I went home in December, so it has grown to this much. So what they do is they will take a branch that, when it is about an inch in diameter, they will remove the leaves and remove the outer green bark, and then they take the middle bark and air dry it slowly, and then it curls up on its own. So the cinnamon picture, that those sticks that I showed you, and those were from what my sister prepared for me to bring here. So it's from our own home. Okay, so the next plant is okra. Of course, there are so many plants. It being a tropical country, even in our own backyard, there are so many plants. But I cannot show everything, so I chose some that are of interest to me for one reason or another. This one I really like it partially because it's a really tasty food. You can see the okra pod here. And the flower is so pretty. It's so big. It's almost like a hibiscus flower, fairly big, and it's really, really pretty. It has burgundy middle in the center here. And of course, okra, I don't know if how many of you have had okra here. You find it in the grocery store now, which is nice. When you cut it, it has lots of mucus coming out, and because that mucus is really healthy, have all kinds of health benefits. So that's okra. Even though these apical leaves look thinner, and the other leaves are actually fairly large and rounder. Next plant is the vanilla orchid, and it just grows. Again, this is from my brother's backyard, in fact, and the flowers are kind of yellowish. And you can see the beans right here. I hope you can see the beans here. See the whole stack of beans. And they grow there. And the thing is, people grow cinnamon, and because they can use it every day in their curries, in their whatever they are cooking. But vanilla is not something that is easy to put to usage from this state. Like most other plants, they can pick it, put it into whatever foods or decorate in the house or whatever. But vanilla, when it comes out like this, it doesn't you cannot just take it out and just simply dry it and get vanilla flavor. There's a special procedure, you have to air dry it this many hours first day, this many hours second day, and bring it in, put it in the dark, put it back in the sun, or, not the sun, in the shade, but airy place. And then finally, you keep going like that for many days, and then, wait until it goes dark and black, and then you take it out, put it in a dark place for this many weeks, and then you take it out and you have to extract it in alcohol. So it's a long procedure. People usually don't bother with it, and not like here in Sri Lanka, people don't use vanilla as flavoring that much because they use cinnamon and cardamom and things like that more frequently. So people, you can see even in this picture, it's not that they haven't taken that much care of this plant, all the other things growing all around it. And it's just there just for the, for fun, they were just growing it. Now this is black pepper. These are the pods. And in fact, what we eat are the same ones when they are mature. They look like this. And then you sun dry it to get to, then it goes black. And it's easy when you even touch with your hand, it just easily come apart. And then you pack them, grind them, and eat it. And these grow everywhere. And it's just, I think it's, the soil is fertile. There's lots of rain, lots of sun, so things grow very easily. And one of my favorite plants is jackfruit. And oh, sorry, I think I forgot to put the name in there. That's okay. So these are the jackfruit. These are very large trees. And you can see here black pepper, growing all up it as well here. And why I like jackfruit so much is because in Sri Lanka, the saying is that if you have a jackfruit, it's almost like having a rice field. It gives so many fruits. Each one of these ones, on average, it could be about 2 feet long and 1 foot in diameter. And when you bring one down, it's enough for 2, 3 families to eat. And the jackfruit, when it is young, when it just have come out of the flower, is probably about 6 inches long or so. You can use it, cook it as a special curry. And when it is a medium size, you can cook it in a different way. And then when it is mature, it's almost like eating potatoes and Brazil nuts together, because the nut inside the jackfruit, each pod, is the size of a Brazil nut, and you can cook it differently. And when it is ripe, it's like potatoes. It's really not the whole thing. You have to cut and remove the skin, and you have to get what is inside. And then if you let it go even more ripe to the sweetness, it's the best fruit. It's so fragrant, so good, and one big fruit again will serve so many people. So and you don't have to do anything. These trees are huge, really, really big. I don't even know to give an example here. It's, like a big oak tree, really big, and they last more than 100 years. And this particular tree was planted by my mother when she was a child. And my mother passed away recently, close to 90 years of age. And then we have in next to our own property, one of my relatives, a plant that was planted by my grandfather. So that was, probably 100, 30, 40 years ago. So these plants last so long, keep giving fruits all year round, and it's just a treasure. And of course, just like plants growing so happily, there are all kinds of animals, and this is one of our common woodpeckers, and I just want to show you a bigger shot of it. And it's called the flameback woodpecker. It's red, it's beautiful. The size is almost like a pileated woodpecker, but slightly smaller than a pileated. And another one of my favorite fruits is passion fruit. You probably recognize it by looking at the fruit. And the fruit is pretty, and the flowers are even prettier, gorgeous flowers. And actually, just like the grapevine leaves here, people, you can eat the young leaves of the passion fruit plant, and it's very tasty. And this, again, was growing in the backyard. And this is, when I was there, it was the passion fruit season, so I could just swim in passion fruit. I forgot to animate it, but that's okay. Another one, papaya. Again, you let it ripe, and you just pick it from the tree when it is ripe, so it tastes really good. And again, there are not only humans, lots of animals are attracted to ripe papayas. Can you see another one hiding here? That is a barbet. Can you see the green bird on the papaya? And this is another picture I took of a barbet. So the bird looks like this. And I have a video to show you, not only barbets, there, parrots and all kinds of birds and other mammals, small mammals come to eat it. But I have this video to show you. Last time when I was going through the slides with Bob, my PowerPoint crashed. Hopefully it wouldn't happen now, but I will just turn it on. So that particular bird that you saw, it's about 3 feet long. It's endemic to Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka has two different types of hornbill. So that was a hornbill. Two different types of hornbills. That what you saw was the gray hornbill, and that one, is fairly common where my family lives. So let me see. So this is basically our home, family home, and one thing I want to show you is that. Um, generally when we think about coconut trees, we all tend to, associate it with coastline because that's the pictures that you see in media. Of course, there are coconut trees all along the shoreline in Sri Lanka, but it's not limited to the coastline. And as I showed you in my first map, we live in the rolling mountains, that type of area. And even in that area, every household literally have so many coconut trees in their backyard. Everywhere you see, just going up to the sky are coconut trees. So this is our backyard. You can see, so many coconut trees, even though it's in this mountainous region. So when I come out of to the veranda, what I see is these rolling hills. So that's the background, environment these coconut trees are growing in. And you can see even in this picture, see the coconut trees here. So somebody from far away will see our area as being on a mountain, like on a rolling hill. Oh, I have another picture to show you, to show this particular plant, very special plant. It's a weed in a way, but it's also a medicinal plant. And in Sri Lanka, we call it Nidikumba. Nidikumba means sleeping plant, and the scientific name is Mimosa pudica. And you will see why it is so special. Okay. So I'm not going to turn it on again. So it kept going, and that was my son's hand. This picture was taken actually from a previous visit, but I like that video. So him going and touching everyone, and at the end, all of it falls asleep. So, and the flower itself is pretty. Oh, it keeps crashing. So this is the next slide. So what I wanted to tell you about the previous slide was that the flower is almost like a pom-pom, pink to purple pom-pom, and they're small. So those plants, they just fall asleep, and then within a couple of hours, they wake up again. And that particular plant is a medicinal plant that is used for various purposes in Ayurvedic medicine. And so, since we have a short time, I didn't want to go into all the fruit stuff that we have. These are all from our yard. We have mangoes. In Sri Lanka, there are probably, 100 different types of mangoes, 50 to 100, I don't know how many. It's funny, here, people know mangoes, maybe 3, 4 different varieties. It's the same with the apples there. When I go there, when I talk to people, they say there are two kinds of apples, green apples and red apples. It's the same here. There are 2, 3 different types of mangoes, Alfonso and some other mangoes. But if when you're in Sri Lanka, there are all kinds of mangoes. Some are the size of a plum, tiny, but very sweet, like honey mangoes. Some are fibrous, some are big, some are small, some are elongated, different varieties with different flavors, different sweetness. It's amazing. Just like different types of apples here, you have all kinds of choices. And same for bananas. There are all kinds of bananas. Some are sweet, some are sour, some are green when they ripe, some are yellow when they're ripe, some are red when they're ripe. So all kinds of bananas. Um, And anonas, I have actually seen these things in Pete's Boutique and also in Superstore. When you cut them, they look like this, and this whole part is edible except the seeds. Seeds are, poisonous, just like the cherry pits and things like that. So you don't eat seeds, but it's very tasty. And then starfruit that you're familiar with, and this is an old tree, but this is what the tree looked like. And mangosteen. Some of these fruit trees, they are native to Sri Lanka, but some of these are, from other parts of the world. And I think mangosteen is from Malaysia. This may be from South America, but now, they are growing in Sri Lanka everywhere. That's it. So that's the summary of so as I said, these are just what is growing in behind my house, our house there. But when you go to other climatic zones, especially dry zone, there are different types of plants like cacti and plants that are really adapted for that dry zone. They have very tiny leaves, and some of them are thorny. This is to reduce desiccation. And there's a special fruit called wood apple, if you want to Google it. I forgot to take a picture when I was there. When I was a child, we used to love them. Wood apple, that's the English term. We call it deul. It's basically like a small coconut, but it's not a coconut. It's about half the size of a coconut, or 1/3. In the middle of it is a brown pulp, which is very tasty, and you could make into milkshakes and things like that. But it comes from that dry zone, and the tree is like the size of a maple tree, but its leaves are tiny and like a hawthorn, like lots of thorns, but it gives a beautiful fruit. So, so these are the fruits from just that wet zone, wet/intermediate. So that's about it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to ask. And I think it's okay.
What was the fruit? It sounded like breadfruit, but I don't think that was the name.
Oh, the jackfruit. Breadfruit is different. Breadfruit is about 1/10 of the size of a jackfruit, or maybe 1/8 of the size of jackfruit. Breadfruit is also used, people eat it, but not as popular as jackfruit, because jackfruit, you can eat every stage of development of that fruit, and it's very, very tasty. And the breadfruit is good enough, but not as good as the jackfruit. And you cannot eat it as a fruit, the breadfruit, as a sweet fruit.
How do you spell it? How do you spell that?
Which one?
J-A-C-K.
It's like a jack, Jack and Jill.
Jackfruit.
Yeah, well, that's the British term. We call it cos.
And
yeah.
Well, you're going to have to spell it, because I'd like to look it up.
Okay. So if you put like a K-O-S-S, just like saying kiss, but it's K-O-S-S. So that's the Sinhalese term. But
Okay.
if you Google jackfruit, J-A-C-K fruit, you will see it. In fact, just during last year, I have just within a year period, I have seen jackfruit in the superstore here on Quinpool Street, and also in Pete's Boutique, the fruit, the sweet part. They sell, tiny piece of it, cut into small pieces, and they sell it.
In the chat section, Jeff has just given a Wikipedia link to jackfruit. You can check it out there.